Hello, everybody, and welcome to Career Expert Roundtable. I am Bill, the company's expert, and with me, as always, is Abby from the Life Work Balance channel. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me again, Bill. I'm glad that we're able to do this sort of chit chat with all of our viewers. It's nice that we'll be able to hopefully answer their questions, put them in the chat if you
Absolutely.
got them.
Yeah, and this is going out live. It's on my channel. It's on your channel. It's on your YouTube channel, and I think you got a Twitch channel.
Yep.
So wherever you are watching this from, if you are seeing this right now, you should see a chat box or chat field, whatever you call it, somewhere in the vicinity of our faces. Get in the chat box. Let me know what your question is, and we will be answering those live. We really don't have much of an agenda or things to talk about. We're just going to be fueling your questions, going off what you guys are wanting us to talk about. And I think that's it. This is episode 20 of these. We do these every 2 weeks. So I think you had a question that we were going to kick things off with, Abby. What was your
Yes.
take on that?
Yes. So I am a career and interview coach. So a lot of my content is about how to prepare for your job search and then also prepare for upcoming interviews. So a lot of questions that I get have to do with how to answer very specific interview questions. And someone emailed me and they said that they left a job in August of 2024 and still have not found a job. It's the end of March, almost April of 2025. And they only worked at their old job for 8 months and they finally resigned due to the toxic work environment. They experienced some verbal abuse from their old boss, and they're trying to come up with that good question or their good answer to the question, why did you leave your last job? So
Always a tough one. Yeah.
yes. And it's not really the interviewer's business, but you don't really want to distract from actually answering that question. So I hope that they don't ask you this type of question in an interview. If they do, how do you approach it? So it's really best to keep your responses professional. So focused on the positive, not focused on the negative. There's no need to focus it on the fact that it's a toxic work environment or you experienced specifically verbal abuse from your old boss. You want to keep it relatively concise, and then you want to keep it more positive and forward looking while subtly hinting at some of the challenges that you might have faced while you were in that previous role. But don't dwell there. Don't focus on negativity or bad mouthing your previous employer, because those are all red flags to people who are going through the hiring process. So when it comes to how you might answer this type of question, a response could be, I decided to leave my last position in August 2024 because I felt like it wasn't the right fit for me long term. I was there for about 8 months and gained valuable experience, but encountered some challenges with the work environment that didn't align with my values or my career goals. I took the time since to reflect on what I want in my next role, somewhere where I can thrive, contribute meaningfully, and grow professionally, which is why I'm excited about this opportunity. So having a response like that, short, sweet, concise, it kind of hints to some challenges that you may have experienced in the work environment and that you had the self-awareness to remove yourself and then forward think about what types of things you're looking for in that next opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a good answer. How long did you say the person was between jobs? From
So it was since
August?
August of
August. So
2024.
that's like what, like 8, 9 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Is that typical? It seems like once upon a time that might have been more of an issue. I think in the last, like, ever since COVID, I think it's like it would not surprise me to learn that that's more typical than I think it has been in the past.
Yeah, people
If
are really struggling with the job search, and it takes them a long time to find jobs that are the right fit for them. And I think a lot of this just has to do with a somewhat saturation of applicants. So there's a lot of people who apply to jobs, and many people are trying to look for like the easy way to apply for roles. They want to like mass apply. They don't have to update their resumes. So there's lots of things that could be going on that could contribute to why the job search is taking so long. My suggestion is if it is taking you months to find a job, there's something wrong with your process. So we need to figure out what that is and diagnose the problem and then focus on solutions. Be solution oriented to figure out how you might be a little bit more strategic with your application process. Many times,
or you could be looking in the wrong place. That's another thing in the posted job market.
yes, absolutely. Maybe I'm only exclusively looking on Indeed and I'm applying to jobs that are actually fake jobs or that were posted by Indeed and not by a real person. So it's very possible that there are things that are going wrong in the person's process. And if you are applying to real jobs, you're applying directly on the organization's website and you're still not getting anything, the first place I like to look is a person's resume, just because they might have a formatted resume that just is not doing them any justice. People typically will, in this situation, will be submitting generic resumes. They won't be tailoring it to the specific role. And hiring managers and recruiters can spot a generic resume from miles away. And if you don't have, well, I guess if you haven't put in the effort to apply to the job, they're not really going to put in the effort to review your application.
Yeah, customize.
Mm-hmm.
It seems counterintuitive to customize because it seems like, okay, why would I spend more effort, on this one job when I could just keep it generic and then blast it out to 800 jobs, and get this pepper the job market with my resume. It's actually more effective to customize. That used to mean you would apply for substantially less jobs. It would still be more effective because you would get callbacks for those few jobs that you applied to. But today, because of AI and stuff, you can still customize your resume or your application and still do a quite high volume of applications because
Absolutely.
the AI does the heavy lifting for you. Let's get to some of the stuff here. Before I completely cut you off, Abby, was there more to it? I just want to make sure.
No, I think that most people are just wondering how you might answer the question, why did you leave, without being too negative, rambling, focusing on the wrong things. So really, when you answer this type of question, why did you leave your last job? Keep it vague but honest. Mention a mismatch with the organization. You don't have to go into the nitty-gritty details of the toxicity or the verbal abuse that you've experienced, which could make you seem overly negative and like you're placing the blame on them, which we all know it is on them, but they don't necessarily want it to be pointing fingers at anyone. Having a short, concise answer where you're also showing some of that honesty is showing your self-awareness. It's reflecting on your experience, and that really demonstrates some maturity and clarity about you understanding your needs, which employers want to find people who are the right fit for them. People who have self-awareness can be the right fit. And then you can pivot to the positive where you really show your enthusiasm for the new role. It focuses on your readiness to move into this new position with this new organization and start fresh.
Absolutely. There's something here from Dr. Gwendolyn. I like the name Gwendolyn. It's a fancy name. But the problem is you abbreviate it to Gwen, which I think isn't it's Welsh, right? Is it a Welsh name? I don't know. Just once you've been to Wales and you've heard them talk, you have your own thoughts on the whole Welsh thing. But thank you very much. No, this has moved on me here. Let's see. And Aldo says, great insights. Thank you very best as I trip over my words completely from Monterrey, Mexico. Monterrey, right on. And Durango and Guadalajara and all those places.
Yes.
Lovely this time of year before the summer kicks in and it gets 200 degrees above zero, something like that. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's very nice. It's great to see people from everywhere. Okay, now we got a string of messages from Dogstar. Let's jump in here. Dogstar says, hi, Bill. I applied for a posted job and had 2 interviews with external recruiters. After the second one, they rejected me, saying the company decided to meet other candidates. That's a very, very eloquent and original statement to make, I would want to say. Dogstar continues, I suspected that they never even shared my profile with the company. Okay, and should I mention what happened with the recruiters or stay silent? If he knows nothing, it's fine. But if he does, maybe I should be upfront. What do you suggest? Okay, so let me see if I got this straight here. I got this straight, Dogstar. You applied for a position with external recruiters and you suspect that they didn't pass it on to the employer. I just want to make sure I understand. Is that what you kind of got out of that story there, Abby?
Yeah. Well, and it seems like maybe this person applied to the same job with the same organization and is now in the process with a hiring manager directly there. Yeah. And so they're wondering if maybe they should bring up the fact that they already went through the first 2 interviews with an external recruiter, didn't make it. And, maybe there's eventually the lines won't be crossed. They'll talk and they'll find out this background information. I could have mixed feelings. What do you think, Bill?
Well, listen, my kind of default position on this is that as a general rule, the way I regard it is you don't know what went on internally. There's no way you're going to know. I mean, you can guess based on subtle hints and clues of what they said or how they responded, but it's neither here nor there. All you know is that it didn't work out. And I would go even further and say that any feedback you do get, also as a general rule, you can almost discount because they're probably not being honest or they're not telling you the whole story. So that makes it even harder to try and determine where the fault was, if there was one. You never know what situation you're walking into. There could be all kinds of political stuff. You have no idea. So it's hard to derive a conclusion from little scraps of information like this. And I would encourage people not to try because you can easily come to the wrong conclusion. And in an absence of information, we tend to get paranoid. We tend to always assume the worst. So you're probably going to start thinking, oh, I'm no good, at interviewing, or I'm no good, or nobody wants me. A very, very negative kind of thing. So I don't think there's anything to be gained about really dwelling on this stuff. That would be my general approach. Before we go any further, what do you think of this, Abby? What would be your way of looking at it?
Yeah. So I, thinking that you're possibly in the interview process with the same organization for a similar position with someone who's different from the two external recruiters that you initially were in contact with, I don't think there's any reason to bring it up unless the person who's in the organization brings it up. If they say, oh, well, we saw in our, internal applicant tracking system that you applied for these jobs, what happened? Then you could just say, I got a notice that they decided to move forward with other candidates. It was still really important to me to continue to seek opportunities with this company and organization for these positive reasons. We can name alignment, excitement for whatever type of work they're doing, etc. And just pivot to the past. You can briefly touch on the fact that they decided to move forward with other candidates, which is the very typical generic response that people get when they're rejected, and move forward. No need to dwell.
Yeah, that's what I would say. If you really suspect that, there might be an issue with your applications or how you do your interviews, and you really want to do something proactive to verify that once and for all, because you strongly suspect oh my God, I must be doing something wrong. What is it? That's where you have a couple of options. The first option would be to do mock interviews with a friend or family member. That's sort of the sort of most basic thing you can do. One thing that can come out of that is getting feedback. It's not the primary source of value. The primary source of value is for you to rehearse and, get used to the questions, get used to thinking in a slightly awkward situation when someone's staring at you. That's the primary reason you would do mock interviews, in my opinion. As a secondary benefit, you might be able to get useful feedback if you trust the other person. I mean, if it's friends or family, do you really respect their opinion on you? Is it really objective? Probably not, but you never know. That depending on your relationship with them, you might be able to get something. You could level it up, and then instead of doing this with a friend or family member, you could do it with a professional. You could get an interview coach, career coach, that kind of stuff. I know, Abby, I believe you do that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't do that, so I'm speaking outside of what I do. But Abby does that. Other people do that. You could go to an external HR firm, like an HR company in your hometown, I suppose, and do it. I know a lot of executives do that. They get people to work with them on their interviewing. For regular people, that don't have a lot of money to throw at the problem, you don't need to do any of that. So you could do that and work with a coach. And you had a suggestion, I think, Abby, with how maybe people get into that, doing the career coach thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I just put a chat in the chat with a link to a video that I posted a couple of weeks ago, which is a 30-minute mock interview where I asked, I think it was 9 questions. And then I have 3 minutes of silence where I'm looking at you, nodding and listening to your response. It's a pre-recorded video, so it's not really live, where people can practice giving their responses to those types of questions. So that's an option. Using friends or family, like you had mentioned, is a great thing. Using a coach like me, I do mock interviews with a lot of different people. I like to tailor them specifically to the interview that they're preparing for. So I create specific questions based off of the job that they've applied to. And then there's also some other resources that are available to you in your communities. Here in the United States, which is where I'm located, we have workforce centers, and workforce centers are like local community resources that are free, where you would be able to use them for, resume reviews, upskilling things. They have classes on how to use Excel and computer programs and things like that. And they also have career coaches who can do mock interviews with you. So there's a lot of opportunities available. I do think that doing a mock interview and recording it, that's like the key, is then having the data to go back and listen to and watch yourself during your mock interview. It provides you with invaluable data about how you're showing up. Not only do you watch your body language and see if you have any kind of obnoxious or eye-catching tics or behaviors that might be occurring, you can also then actually hear your responses to questions, hear if you're using filler words, if you have lots of uncomfortable silence, if you're rambling. Like, there's lots of great things about going back to listen to yourself. So as many people will probably cringe at the thought of listening to themselves, I highly recommend you do it. Don't think about how your voice sounds. Listen to it purely for the data that you can gather from this mock interview. You can do it in a session with me. I record all of my sessions. I send you a link so that you can watch the video of it back. If you're doing it with a friend or a family member or someone in the community, like a workforce coach, then you can just use your phone during the session and put it on a voice memo. But I highly recommend recording it and listening to it back so that you can notice some of those things.
I like listening to myself. It's the only way to really be assured of intelligent conversation sometimes. But no, what Abby said, there's a lot of great stuff there. And I would imagine that if you had a career coach, the other benefit of doing that is that you're not alone. You've got somebody that is going to be working with you and giving you individualized attention. I know in the past, Abby, you were saying you were recommending people do like just one session, like a one hour session, just put your toe in the water, get some immediate feedback, maybe a reaction to how you're doing interviews, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, for a lot of people that's good. Other people might want to continue and get other benefits out of it. So,
yes. So I offer things, I call it an interview strategy session. And this is where I spend 45 minutes, because that's how long my sessions are, 45 minutes, just having a conversation with my clients. I talk to them about what's worked well for them in the interviews in the past, what hasn't worked so well, some of the feedback they've received. We strategize how they can show up to their interview, if it's a virtual interview or an in-person interview. We practice a lot of the common questions that could come up and help craft and really tailor their responses to those common interview questions. And then I also help them come up with questions to ask at the end of their interview. So my interview strategy sessions are much more conversational. And I usually recommend that people do that with me first, because that can help them meet their needs when it comes to confidence and feeling prepared for those interviews. If they want to go a step further, then we can move into the mock interviews. This is where I act as an interviewer. I create questions. I don't send them to them ahead of time, so they're all surprise questions. I record the session. I usually end up asking them about between 8 to 10 questions in that quick time frame. And because I'm not like the real interviewer, I don't have any, follow-up questions or specifics to ask of them. But I also expect that they ask me questions at the end of the interview so that we can really practice the entire thing. And then I give them feedback on their body language, on their responses. I take detailed notes throughout our mock interview. I send that to them afterwards. I send them the recording. So they've got all of these resources available to help them really notice what might be going on and how they're responding and showing up in real time. And I've had people who just do one session with me, and then I've had people who will work with me through the entire hiring process for a specific job. So I worked with someone from Africa, actually, who I think their interview round was like 6 different interviews. And so we did a mock interview and practice, interview strategy sessions for each of those different rounds, and they ended up getting the job. So there's some good success stories out there. It's obviously not guaranteed because, everything is very subjective in the interview and the hiring process. But what's most important is giving you the tools and the resources to feel confident and prepared, which is a major hurdle to making a good first impression during that interview.
Absolutely. A couple of things I want to just throw out there also is that, first of all, remember that the posted job market is not the be all end all. Mm-hmm. All the jobs that you see out there that are posted on the internet, that's something like 20, maximum 30% of
Mhm.
all the jobs that are actually out there. So the other 70 to 80% of all the jobs, they're all hidden. They're not posted. You can get those jobs, but you have to go about it in a different way. It's more of the networking kind of thing, direct outreach to organizations, that kind of stuff, which you can do like from social networking, and you could do it virtually. You don't have to do it in person, but
Mhm.
just be aware that that's the posted job market of what you see. That's not all your options by far. Okay. So if something I talk about on my channel as a regular basis is trying to turn younger people on to the hidden job market, like all those jobs that are not posted, try to cover the basics of like that they exist and how you would go about getting those and why you would want to do that. So that's a thing. And the other thing I want to throw out is also remember that, likability is a pretty damn important thing in a job interview. You know, people like human beings are flawed. They're very emotional. They're driven by superficialities, cosmetic type things, especially when you're meeting someone for the first time. And they often confuse likability with genuine ability and your estimation of what that person would be like and what quality or caliber they would be as an employee. Those get blurred and confused,
Mhm.
So just being likable, learning the basics of being likable, having a smile on your face, going in there and looking, somewhat, approachable, rather than like looking there like nervous and, kind of uncomfortable. It's so stupid, but it really does have like a major, major effect. So learn all that kind of stuff. Like start out with that stuff and just be aware of that.
Yeah. And I just put in the chat literally this morning, the video that I posted was the 5 essential skills for all job seekers. And one of those skills is being able to showcase your personality and showing that you're more than just a robot who can come in and be a cog in the big machine of the job. And so it's really important that you showcase who you are, what you do, and how you're going to fit in, not only with the skills and the technical stuff that's needed for the actual job, but also with your manager. They're assessing you like, are you going to get along well? Are you going to drive them nuts? Are you going to always be asking them questions? Are they going to be fighting with you? Same thing with your team. How are you going to fit in with your team? And then the overall culture. So it's not an unbiased process for sure, which is why this job search is so frustrating for most people. It would be way easier if we hired people purely off of their skills and their experience and their abilities. But that's like a very small portion of this process.
Absolutely. We've got something from Alberto. Alberto says, 1 month ago, I was contacted by a headhunter. Did they have the full tribal gear and the spear, or this was like, something? And at that time, I had a job. I was laid off today. Oh, that's unfortunate, Alberto. I'm sorry to hear that. Should I tell this situation to the headhunter that you were laid off? Should you tell the headhunter that you were laid off? Does it continue? No, that's it. Okay. So, well, I'll put this out to you, Abby, if you had any immediate thoughts before I get into it.
Yeah. So you don't want to lie. That's one thing I'm going to say. You don't want to lie. You don't want to be like dishonest. At the same time, more information isn't always best. And this
Yes,
is
we
like,
can massage the truth, as it were. Yes.
so no, I don't think you should tell the headhunter, unless they're actively helping you get jobs. In some cases, if you're working directly with a recruiter, letting them know I was laid off. Here are some of the reasons I was laid off. They might then go into overdrive and really help you more than what they were before. But in most cases, that additional information isn't necessarily going to do you any benefit. So I don't recommend sharing that information unless they bring it up.
Alberto, you are awesome. And it sucks that you were laid off. Some of the most talented people have been laid off. You are going to be back up on your feet in no time. You're going to find something really soon. So take heart. Okay, we're going to get through this. I agree with Abby. I draw the line at like an absolute outright lie. Like if the answer is yes and you say no, do you have this credential? And you say yes when the answer is no, you've crossed the line. That's a lie. That's not allowed. However, I agree that you don't always have to supply full and complete information on everything, especially things that make you seem bad, because this entire exchange is all about first impressions. They don't really know who you are. And let's face it, some amazing employees have had weird stuff in their past. They might have been let go from a job. You know what I mean? Does that mean that they're a bad employee and they will always be a bad employee? Of course not. It's all about how it appears. It's all about appearances. So this is a game of appearances. So if there's something where from a certain perspective, the answer might be yes, but from another perspective, the answer might be no. It kind of depends. Then I would err on the side of giving yourself, the best impression, making the best impression, okay, without crossing the line into an outright factual lie. That's a great thing when they ask you stuff that's like a matter of opinion. You can have your opinion on that, right? Yep. Opinion is divided on the subject. Everyone says you don't. I say you do, right?
Mm-hmm. So if it's going to help you, share the information. If the information that you share is not going to help you and it could actually do harm to your situation, there's no need to share it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing, Abby made a great point at the beginning that I was going to bring up, and that is that a lot of times they're asking you stuff about things that's quite frankly none of their damn business. What you have done with some third party is none of their business. Now, if you decide to tell them, what went on, or disclose what you did, or answer their question, you have that right. You can disclose that if you wish, but you're under absolutely no obligation to tell them what you did with somebody else. They are not entitled to that information, nor does the argument wash that, oh, it's a reasonable question under the circumstances. Yeah, them asking you for your credit card number is also a reasonable thing if they're going to hire you and hook up the e-payments and all that kind of stuff. But you still they're not entitled to it, and you don't have to answer, and most people will not answer, right? So a lot of these questions fall under that category. Were you laid off by this other company recently? Is none of their business. So if it will make you appear bad and give a bad first impression, my instinct would be to not disclose that. Okay. You know what I mean? They're not entitled to it. And that's how I would proceed as a default kind of way as you go through this. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's all about this job search and interview process is all about presenting yourself in the best light to really showcase not only how well you're going to be able to do the job, but how well you're going to fit in with the organization. And while layoffs happen all of the time and they suck, and they're many times have nothing to do with performance or anything like that, people's minds wander to like, well, why did this person get laid off versus the other person? And they start to then tell themselves stories and build it in. So bringing it up, unless it's been prompted by them, could just do you more harm than good.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, I know I kind of sort of responded to this earlier, just the Welsh thing. I just want to say I went to Wales when I was a kid, and in my memory, in Swansea, in Wales, they had it was the first artificial swimming pool I've ever been to that had like the artificial wave machine. And instead of like a pool where the walls are like that, like a square, it was like a beach. So you have the gradual sort of thing like this, and then there's no water, right? And they had the wave machine going, and I don't know, I was like 10 years old. I got blown away by like a 6-foot wave.
Oh my gosh.
But it was the coolest thing I'd ever experienced up to that point, and probably till I was about 18. Mm-hmm. So that sticks in my memory. And if Dr. Gwendolyn can tell me, how do you pronounce it? Is it Aberystwyth? Aberystwyth. Let me know if I got that right. Okay, moving on. Algo says, this just happened to me. Left my job 8 months ago, and I'm in the process of finding an opportunity that fits more my profile and values. Mm-hmm. Working in sales for industrial power management. Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is there a question? Here we go. I have tried or used other interviews to train in different technological fields, but I've been rejected in the second or third interview that they've moved forward with somebody more experienced. Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's no direct question there, but what would you say to this? Is there a reaction we can have?
Yeah. So I would say this is very common. there's one position in most cases. And so even though they might have 5 people who are qualified to do the job and who could do the job, it's up to these interviewers to really narrow down that pool to one person who will be the best fit for the role. So if you found that the feedback you're getting is that they're moving forward with people who have more experience than you, then that's the area that you really want to focus your preparation on. So what transferable skills do you have? Even though you might not have direct experience or certain number of years of experience, what things about you will actually set you apart and make you a better fit for those roles than the people who might have the exact experience that they're looking for. And this is where those, more soft or life skills can really come into play. Your ability to communicate, problem solve, resolve conflicts, think innovatively and creatively can really be selling points that someone who maybe has more experience and is a little bit more rigid in the way that they do things doesn't have that flexibility or that creativity to think outside the box, or they have worked for the same organization for 15 years and that's all they know. So there's lots of benefits that you think or that you could come up with that are those transferable skills. The hard part is it's going to be up to you to sell yourself to the interviewer to really prove to them that you are the best fit and the better fit than someone who may have more experience than you.
Yeah. Say what you have, what you've done, what you know, what you can do.
Yeah.
Moving on. Danielle Jones says, what is the best way to follow up with recruiters after you attended a career fair? How do you get recruiter to consider you with entry-level experience? Well, there's 2 questions there. For the first one, I would say just reach out. Now, if you're going to a career fair, you're meeting people in person. So presumably, like the best thing to do would be if you showed up there, ideally with business cards. I know most younger kids don't do that, but you really should consider it, because if you have business cards in your pocket, you take it out, you give it to the person, that's an instant signal for them to reciprocate. They're going to take out their business card, they're going to give it to you. So if everyone you spoke to, like at all the booths or whatever, where you're going and you're looking at all these different companies, you had a stack of business cards that you came home with afterwards. These are all the people that you met, all the people that you talked to. It's got their contact information, their name, their title. That makes it a lot easier to go from there. Certainly to follow up with these people. You could contact all of them. You'd say, it was great meeting you. Just to reiterate, reminder, this was me. Here's a link to my resume, my profile. I'm very excited about learning more about opportunities with you guys, or something like that. That would be a great way of doing it. If not, you have to sort of get something where you document who it was that you spoke to and do it some other way.
Another great option is LinkedIn. I believe there's like a QR code on your mobile device that you can bring up where you can have them scan it and then it brings them to your profile, or vice versa. And so if you don't swap business cards, connecting with them directly on LinkedIn is a next best option, in my opinion.
LinkedIn, you're going to have to walk away with something. Yeah. So a QR code scan or something.
Yep. And LinkedIn is saturated with recruiters, and the chances of this recruiter who is at this job fair being on LinkedIn is very, very high. So if they don't have a business card that you can exchange, I would recommend giving them your resume with a business card. You take their business card, or if they don't have the business cards, connect with them on LinkedIn.
The second part of the question, how do you get a recruiter to consider you with entry-level experience? There's a couple of things in there. One of the great things, by the way, about going for jobs that are in the hidden job market is that you are demonstrating your abilities by reaching out to them. So they're getting a free sample of what you're like. They're seeing your initiative. They're seeing the results of you taking initiative. Like if you're in front of the right person, saying the right things, making a good impression, being very persuasive, that's a demonstration of how capable you are, regardless of what's on your resume. I mean, you could have come right out of school and done this, or you could have 35 years experience and done this. They're seeing the effects of it either way. So it's not about talking up what you can do. It's about you've just shown off what you can do, right? Yeah. And if you go away and they are left with the impression that, wow, that person was fun to talk to. They said a lot of interesting things. I really enjoyed the interaction, and I would like to talk with them again. If that's the impression they're left with, it has nothing to do with how much experience or qualifications you have. they've gotten a free sample of how awesome you are. And that's the best testament of what you would be like as an employee. So you can go the route where you try and demonstrate things rather than just simply talk them up. The other thing is now entry level experience. If that means you've been in an entry level job, then you can talk about that, and that enables you to do things around that level and up. Or if what you're referring to is that you haven't had a career job yet and you'd be going for like entry level type jobs, remember, in school or whatever you have, so whatever training you've done, you've demonstrated all the fundamental things that you will be doing on the job. Okay. You've had to be punctual. You've had to have a good work ethic. You've had to be trainable. You've had to seek out help when you need extra help. You've had to
show up in a professional way.
Yeah, exactly. If you've done group work in school or university or college or whatever, or trade school, whatever you've done, maybe you've been responsible for working and interoperating with other people and collaborating. You have collaboration skills and, team leadership skills and all this kind of stuff. You could talk about those in job interviews, in behavioral questions. You can say with complete honesty that you have experience at doing all these different things. And those are all the things that you're going to be expected to do on a job, right? It's just that you were doing it in school. So people sometimes get the impression it doesn't count in some way. It does count, especially if you're going for entry-level jobs. The fact that you can say you've done all of that and you kick ass at all of it, and you can back it up with examples, that's very powerful. So don't forget that you have all of that experience under your belt too.
Yep. And really, when it comes to being considered by someone, when you only have entry-level experience, again, you're selling yourself to the person who's making a decision about if you're going to be a good fit for this role. Now, if this position requires 3 years of supervisory experience and you don't have that, then you're not going to be a good fit for the role. But if it requires 2 years of administrative experience working with computers and, collaborating with others or something like that, then that's where, even though you might have had an entry-level job, you still have likely engaged in collaborative experiences. You probably have experience using computer programs. You probably have some project management experience, maybe not at a full project scale, but there are things that you can pull from your previous experience professionally, educationally, volunteer experience, and even like personal passion projects that will demonstrate that you have the skills necessary to do the job. So it's going to be up to you to analyze the job posting and what they're looking for and display to the recruiter that you have those things that they're looking for. Even if it's not word for word for an organization, paid experience, you still likely have those skills.
Absolutely. Pamela Davis says, what's the best way to seek out short-term, that's 3 to 4 months, contract IT positions like in Agile, that's project management software? Do you want to take this, Abby, or do you have any thoughts on it?
Right off the top of my head, the thing that came to mind for me was networking with other people. These short-term positions, they don't have the time to do large recruitments. They want to connect with someone who knows someone who can do the job and hire them. So rely on your network. And if you are not going to rely on your network and you're looking for, like a website that you could use, I would look into some of those freelance websites like Fiverr or Upwork. And I'm sure there's other, IT specific job boards that you could look into as well. But my gut reaction is your network probably is the best place to start with those, because they don't have the time to waste to do a full recruitment for this type of job.
And let's pretend that you're an introvert, you're a technical person. I mean, you're in IT, for God's sake. So I'm just playing the odds here. I'm an introvert. I'm a technical person. So I get it. It's people don't see how awesome we truly are, but it's a pain that we all have to bear. If you don't have a network and you don't know what that means, okay, if you're in that place, here's the deal. Go on LinkedIn, okay? Do some searches for people. Like you mentioned Agile, okay? Go do a search in your hometown
Mhm.
and have it be a people search and type in the word agile. Okay. And what you're going to get is you're going to get in the results, you know, individuals that they're going to be a list of individuals, and they're going to have the term agile in their profile somewhere. So either they're currently working in a job that uses agile, like some kind of project management type role, or maybe formerly they were in roles where they used agile, something like that. Okay. Um, so you see these people, you see where they're working right now, and you then have the ability to reach out directly to them. So you can contact them in a variety of ways. You could send connection requests, you could use in-mails, you could do, a whole bunch of things. Talk to them. Okay, reach out, say hi. You don't know me, but I'm a person in your hometown, and I have a background in agile, and I'm looking for this, and I'm wondering. I see that you have a background in agile and you've been in project manager roles. I'd very much like to talk to you about your experiences in those roles and what you think of agile and project management going forward into the future. Would you be able to spare me 30 minutes? We could either meet or we could have a phone call. Now if you sent a message like that out to a lot of these people that you find, a lot of them you won't hear anything back, or you might get a no, but some of them they will say yes. Okay, so if you send it out to say 100 people, okay, you might get 20 people responding saying, sure, here's my phone number if you want to call, or I'm free next Tuesday if you want to meet up or something. Like if you blast that out, it's a ratio. Now it might be 5%, 15%, somewhere in there, but you'll get people responding. Reach out to those people and ask them some questions. Say like, like, how did you work in agile? How did you get the project management role? Do companies, do they hire like contract staff? How do they go about doing it? Have you worked as a contract person? Like, ask them all these kind of questions and get an understanding of how this stuff is working in your hometown or your region. Okay. Then you understand kind of maybe what you'd have to do. And then also now you've got people you could reach out to in the future and say, hey, a couple of weeks ago we spoke. I was thinking about something you said. You told me that your company does hire people to do contract work with agile or whatever it is. Just so you know, like if you guys are ever looking, please let me know, because what you told me about your organization makes it seem like a great place to work, and I'd love to explore going further with this. So just so once again, you put that out there, and it's a matter of ratios. 5%, 10%, 20%. Most people, you won't hear anything or you hear a no, but 5%, 10% of the time you get some yeses. So you got 2 or 3 people now that are saying, hey, we might have something. Why don't you come in and meet my boss, and we can explore this further? Something like that. It takes all kinds. Now you're off the grid. Now you're in the world of networking, and you're getting these jobs like Abby mentioned, especially in a case like this where they're not doing big formal, job search campaigns to fill these positions. They're just relying on a couple of people they know that they trust, right? You can stumble upon a situation where they might give you a chance. Mm-hmm. Something maybe temporary, like, hey, let's give, this person seems fine. Let's give them a shot, 3 months, yeah. And it can lead to some great things if it goes in the right direction. So it's that type of thinking that I would recommend that you employ here. Okay. And the more stuff you try, the more you will learn, the more you will know what to say, and what to say to whom, and generate these opportunities for yourself. So learn all you can about this, Pamela, and I wish you the best of luck.
And I think the biggest takeaway when it comes to networking is that you don't want to go in with your ask right away. So if you're going to be reaching out to 100 people and you're going to be saying, I'm looking for a job, help me get one, almost every single person is going to say, I don't have time for that. So you've got to put in some effort on the front end to build relationship and rapport with these people before you go in with your ask. Having an informational interview, talking to them about them, asking them questions, demonstrating interest in them is what's going to build that goodwill, so that when it is time for you to ask for them to put your name into the bucket, or the consideration pile for this specific job, they feel comfortable doing that. People are not going to put your name out there if they don't know anything about you and you just ask them to do it for you.
There's a lot of principles here. I mean, on my channel, I sell a course called Get Hired that talks about all this. You could check that out if you want to go deeper with me. But like Abby said, there's so many principles here. Yeah, you don't sort of get in someone's face and then say, I need a job, help me. They'll be like, I don't know who you are. No, yeah, exactly. But if you approach them and say like, look, and this is not like dishonest. This is genuine. You say like, look, I'm really excited to hear your expert opinion about contract work in Agile in this industry. You have dealt with that for years. You've been in that world. I would love to know what you know about that. Please, dude, teach me, that kind of thing. People find that incredibly flattering. Here's a person right in your face that would love to know what you know. And they just want to hear your opinions and your thoughts about this thing that you know a lot about. It's very flattering, everyone loves that. And they will want to meet you and enjoy interacting with you simply for that reason, right?
Yep.
So the idea is that you don't then follow that up with, oh, here's what I need from you. It's like you go away and just have it be a very positive thing. When you go away, they'll think, man, that person was awesome. I really enjoyed, talking to them. You might not have barely said anything about yourself, but they really love talking to you.
And that's a psychological trick that I recommend people use during the interview process is if you can get the interviewer talking about themselves, people love talking about themselves. So that's a way that you can kind of mentally, psychologically trick the interviewer into saying like, hey, that was a great interview. If they do more talking in your interview than they do in someone else's interview, they'll likely feel more positive, good feelings about your interview than the other one.
Yeah. Like how often do you get in your daily life where someone comes up to you and says like, wow, it's incredible that you know all about this. I would love to just hear what you have to say about this. And then you start talking and they're like, they're genuinely interested. And then when you're done, they go, wow, that was amazing. How often do you get that? You know what I mean? When you do get that, you feel pretty damn good about yourself and you end up loving the other person as like a sort of side effect of that.
Yep.
Like what Abby said, it's like, it's flattering people's ego. Now, listen, it sounds, when you talk about it explicitly like this, it sounds like a very slimy thing. It isn't. Think of all the people that try and sell you stuff. Like you go to the grocery store and they're trying to sell you, desserts and canned food and produce and, and they've got all these ads and it all looks so good. And you might even have a person giving out free samples and stuff like that. It's like they're trying to make you feel good and feel happy about having a great experience here. And, oh, look, there's lettuce involved in your great experience. Look how good it looks, right? It's exactly the same thing. People respond favorably to people that make them try and feel good. That's how it is. So if you go down to a job interview and, your responses are very curt, you're very aloof, you look uncomfortable, you look kind of upset a little.
Standoffish. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could be the most qualified, talented person around, but the impression that the interviewer is left with is, I don't want to work with that person. They make me feel awkward. They make me feel bad. This is not a pleasant encounter. I don't know if they've got some problem with me. I don't feel very good in being in the room with them. Are they going to hire you even though on paper you're the most qualified person? No, right? Because they don't want to work with that person. They want to work with the person that makes them feel really good about themselves.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Absolutely.
As I go on a complete tangent here from this question. Oh, I'm doing a terrible job at keeping up. We're going to have to go a bit faster here, and I'm the main culprit here.
We already answered this question, so we're going on to the next one with Zach. Yep.
There we go. Okay, greetings. I had a third round interview last Wednesday. It went well. That's good. And was told the hiring manager would be reaching out Friday or Monday today. If I don't hear anything today, should I reach out? Abby, you would know more about that than me. What would be expected?
I would recommend reaching out. So usually, so they said they'll reach out by Friday or today. And so if you don't hear from them by the end of today, I think sending them a follow-up email first thing tomorrow is great practice. It also kind of follows my recommendation of 3 business days. So if your interview is Wednesday, then you have the business day of Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Tuesday, you follow up.
If it's a job that you really, really want, like it's like a dream job, it stands out. Just for me, I would say yes, follow up, absolutely. I would follow up with a phone call if you can bring yourself to get on the phone with these people. I would do it. I would
Yes.
say, listen, it's just me. I'm calling to see if there was any news or any developments with this. I just wanted you guys to know that I am very excited about this. I had a great time talking to you, and I hope that we will be in communication. In the meantime, if you need anything else from me, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's all. Have yourself a great day.
Yeah.
Something like that. Just a brief little thing. It conveys your enthusiasm, your warm feelings about it. It's another little opportunity to score some points there.
Yep. And I would say if they don't answer and you leave a voicemail, then leave a voicemail in a very similar fashion, and then even follow up with an email just to say, I left you a voicemail. I wanted to check in on the status of this. Then you've got some really good kind of positive impressions about your ability to follow up, which is something that's also incredibly important for the job that you're probably going to get, hopefully, with this position. And it shows your ability to communicate. It's just a bunch of different skills that are being communicated in this practice of following up. So definitely follow up.
Yeah. Because what's going on, I mean, not to like analyze this to the nth degree or anything, but it's like it's signaling several things. First of all, it signals you care enough to do this extra little optional effort, and so that signals that like you're not just applying to 1,000 jobs and this is just one of the 1,000. This is something that means something to you. That's the implication of it.
Yeah.
Then they're getting a sample of, once again, how awesome you are as a person to deal with. And the implications is that that's how you will be on the job if they have to deal with you. So if you're pleasant and you make them feel good, when they listen to your voicemail, that's another free sample of what you're going to be like if they were to select you and work with you. So there's a couple of things going on under the hood when you do this kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Where are we here? Paint Bold says, how do you answer someone who asks, what do you do when you have been at a company over 20 years? How do you keep it short but clear and impactful? I just want to say, I know exactly where you're coming from, Paint Bald. It's a bald. I thought it was bold, but it's bald. That's even better. What are you saying? What are you saying, Paint Bald? Are you trying to say something here? I think you should just come out with it. Listen, as a detail-oriented person, and I can relate to this, so maybe you can, you get overwhelmed when someone asks you like a highly general question because it's just impossible to bring to your mind, like to articulate all the different details of everything that comes to your mind when they ask you, like, what do you do? It's like, man, where do I start? Pull up a chair because this is going to take a couple hours. It's hard to summarize it very simply, for people like us. Okay, so that can be a big challenge. What really helps is if you've rehearsed some of the stuff. So you've thought about questions like this. You've thought about being in a position where someone doesn't know you at all, and you have to start from zero and present who you are, what you can do, why you're valuable, and why someone would hire you instead of someone else. Like an elevator pitch or something like that. Like if you've thought of that stuff, that's where it can help you answer questions like this. Mm-hmm. So maybe go and like look up like how to do an elevator pitch, because it helps you with very general questions like this.
Yes. And when it comes to answering questions about this sort of thing in a job interview, the approach you want to take is thinking that it's not about you, it's about them. So what do they care about as it relates to the position that you're interviewing for from your past experience? So what I recommend doing from the very first step is to analyze the job posting using some sort of generative AI and have it kick out a couple of keywords or things like competencies that are important for this role, and then tailor your response to those types of competencies and skills. It's not about you, it's about them. So how can you present yourself in a way that will prove it to them that you're the best fit? And this is one of the things, like, our egos can get in the way. I have 20 years of experience in this area, and I'm really proud of all the things I've done. And I don't think that any of those 20 years of experience should be left out. I want to share that. Well, it's not about me in this situation. I have to tailor my responses to the interviewer and really focus on what I believe they want to know from me so that they can make the best choice about who's going to be the best fit for this role. And it's tough, but you've got to narrow it down. And you do so by putting yourself in their shoes and trying to understand what things are they looking for so that you can highlight those things when you answer any interview question.
At the risk of talking about stuff that isn't directly relevant to this question, but is damn important to understanding all this, are sort of basic principles of marketing. Marketing is basically the study of customers or potential customers, right? Marketing is the study of how to make something popular. Okay, that's really what it is. Now, what are we doing here? We're talking about job interviews. Job interviews are where you are selling yourself. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make an impression on the person interviewing you. You're trying to make them think that, you're awesome. They see your value. They see more value in you than in anyone else they've spoken to. Okay. So if you want to make something popular, what you're trying to do in this situation is you're trying to make yourself popular, right? They would rather be your friend than anyone else's friend. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. Okay. Now, how do you do that? Now, Abby brought up a tremendously awesome point. It's not about you, it's about them. People care about, they're looking for something, right? I'm trying to find a painter for my house, whatever. Okay. Now, yeah, okay, I might run an electronics manufacturing company, and I get people approaching me that say, hey, I'm a great electrician, I'm a great lab technician, I can run, it's yeah, but can you paint? That's what I'm looking for, right? So people can talk to me about all this stuff they've done with silicon wafers and with, all kinds of stuff, and I really don't care. But then they mention, I know how to get oil paint to look really fantastic. I go, what was that? Right? It's I don't care what you've done. I'm looking for this. Mm-hmm. Now, do you have that or not? If you don't, let's say goodbye so I can talk to someone who does have that. Yep. If you do, let's talk about it, okay? Because that's what I'm interested in. I don't care about electronics. I don't care about silicon wafers. I care about paint. Can you paint? Mm-hmm. That's my attitude. So if you're selling yourself to me, talk about things that I care about. Talk about how you can paint. And how you can paint better than anyone else, and how you know how to make anything look fantastic with paint. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of sort of trying to get out of your head, like Abby said, try and put aside the ego. It doesn't matter what you're proud of that you've done if it's not about paint, right? You know what I'm saying? If they're looking for paint and they've said it in the job description, they said, we're looking for someone who can paint, who understands different types of paint, latex, oil, whatever. I don't know anything about paint. It's a bad example for me to pick, but watercolors, whatever. You go in there. Do you talk about how you won the Nobel Prize? No, because I don't care about that. Can you paint my house or not? Talk about paint. Then my ears pick up and I go, oh, okay. Maybe you're the person we should pick. Right. Mm-hmm. So you have to step out of yourself. You have to think of what do they want to hear? What are they looking for? And that's what you talk about. Okay? That's the basics of this, but a lot of people don't understand the basics. It's not about how qualified you are in absolute terms. It's about, are you a fit for what they're looking for? Yep. So hopefully that makes sense. I just took us off on another little journey there somewhere.
Yeah, but all of this is relevant. I mean, this applies to the job search. It applies to tailoring your resume. It applies to how you answer every single interview question that is posed to you during the interview process. It applies to how you negotiate. It applies to how you interact with people when you're actually in the job that you've gotten. So it's all really valuable.
Yeah, it's a very self-centered kind of thing. It's not about you. At every juncture, all they care about is themselves. What am I looking for? What am I trying to do? Can you further that? Can you further my own goal of doing this or having this? No? Okay, then I don't care. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Oh, you
And
can.
what's
Okay.
hard,
You know?
yeah, what's hard is that we, as the job seekers, are focused on us. We want to make
Yes.
sure that the job is exactly what we want. It's got the compensation we need. It's got the benefits we want. It's got the job, like the culture that we're looking for. The manager works for me. So we have to take that, like thinking about what's in it for me and really pivot it to thinking about it from the interviewer's perspective and the hiring manager's perspective when we're interacting with them.
Absolutely. Like, not to labor this, but I think this is important. You go down to I don't know, like you go to some store, and you know where you go to those stores where they have like a salesperson that like comes out of the woodwork and advances on you and engages you in conversation, like, let me tell you about, our products here, or whatever. Can I interest you in, whatever it is, right? Something that you don't give a rat's ass about, this kind of thing. And chances are that, you probably find that annoying to a degree because, you know, unless they're a really good salesman or salesperson, what they're doing is they don't care what you want. They want to talk at you about what they want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are, just playing the odds, it's not what you're interested in. You know what I mean? Good salespeople, if anyone cares, they try and ask you a bunch of questions first to get an idea of what you're interested in. And if you say, like, okay, you go to a car dealership, you want to buy a car, and you say, I don't care about gas mileage. I don't care about, how the car looks. I care about how comfortable it is to drive. That's the thing for me. I need that big fluffy steering wheel with the dice and stuff. I don't care how terrible it looks on the outside, or what awful colors, they painted it. But that's really what I'm into, is like just something that feels magnificent. So like, they're like, oh, okay. So then everything that they say to you from that point speaks to how comfortable it is on the inside. And that's how they make a sale, right? It's the same process with a job interview or a job application. It's like you're trying to find out what's important to them. And if you are successful in finding out what they care about, that's how you frame how you present yourself. You could say 2 hours worth of material on about yourself and what you can do, but you've only got 2 minutes to sell yourself. What aspects should you choose to say? It'll be the things that they're looking for, right? The things that they care about. So that's what this process is all about. Anyway, there we go. I love that awkward feeling when you come down off a topic and realize that, what was the question?
It's nice that we've got it just right on the screen to remind us.
Yes, that's good. For people like me, then I can always refer to that. It's Dr. Gwendolyn again. How do you integrate an entrepreneurial experience that actually pays the bills with W-2 positions held throughout college? Do you know what W-2 positions are?
Yep, they're like where you're employed by someone and they provide you with a W-2 for tax purposes.
Oh, that's an American thing. Employers unrealistically seek applicants only work for the corporate. I guess.
Yeah, so it sounds like this person is wondering about how they can really show off all of their experience, even though it's not strictly like official paid jobs, specifically within corporate. And what I like to do is on my resume, and I recommend that everyone do this, regardless of what type of experience you have or don't have, is you title the experience section on your resume, relevant professional experience. That right there, in my opinion, is the blanket statement that's needed to add anything to your resume where you are engaging in a professional way. So this could be paid experience, that W-2. It could be your entrepreneurial experiences where you're self-employed and you're, just doing what you can to hustle. It could be volunteer experience. It could be even your like unpaid educational experience. Like, let's say that you were a TA or like a teacher's assistant or a research, assistant in some way, shape, or form for a school, and you weren't necessarily paid for it, but it was a part of your education. You still have to show up in a professional way. So put all of that on your resume, highlight the things that are relevant from that job to the job that you're applying to. Some of the things might not be relevant, so maybe you don't include some of that on your resume. Only include the things that are relevant to the job that you're applying to, which ties back to our last conversation, which is you have to tailor your documents to what they care about, not what matters to you, not what you want to show off or what you really want to highlight because it was impactful to you. If it's going to be impactful to you getting this job, share it. If it's
Absolutely.
unrelated, take it off.
Yeah, it's first of all, I want to say that's a great tip. Everyone, Abby's mentioned that before. That's a really great tip. Relevant work experience, and then you could put anything on there, right? That's the phrase, relevant work experience.
Relevant professional experience.
Relevant professional experience. Okay,
Yep.
even more general, and that's a good thing because then you can put specific things on there that cater to exactly what you think that they're interested in.
And again, it's none of their business of if it was paid or unpaid, if you got a W-2 or you didn't get a W-2. It's none of their business. It was
Yeah,
still professional experience that's relevant to the job that you're applying to.
absolutely. Um, Here we go. Shaka. How do you answer the question of a long gap in employment? So, work gap. I think we've all done videos on work gaps. It's a very popular topic.
It is. And I think the common advice is to focus on what you did to improve yourself or prepare yourself for this upcoming role. So if you've got a gap in experience, what sorts of training did you do? Did you attend any conferences? Did you do any certifications? How did you better yourself to prepare for this role? Um, and it might take some digging. You might have to go back and think like, okay, maybe it's even saying, well, shoot, I haven't done anything. I'm going to enroll in a course right now.
Yeah,
So think of you want to present it in a way of how you've grown and developed in that gap to prepare you for this new role.
yeah. If this is like, well, in the vast majority of situations, the work gap will be like a current work gap.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be like a work gap in your past where you were between jobs and there was like a 3-year gap, but you did get employed at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about a current work gap where you've been out of work for a while and you're still out of work now. In which case the work gap is still au courant, still it's happening now. So there's a good thing to come out of that in that you could like run out and go and take some free online classes or something. And then you can say like, well, what have I done with this work gap? Well, I've taken it as an opportunity to improve myself. And then you can honestly, truthfully say, I've taken these courses and, this is what I've learned. And now that I've brushed up on my skills, I'm ready to rejoin the workforce and I'm ready for the next phase. Right. So
And similar to our
there you go.
response to Dr. Gwen's question earlier, is there something you did during this paid employment gap that is still professional in nature? Did you volunteer for any organizations? Did you have your own side hustle where you were pet sitting and you had to coordinate, 5 different clients with 15 different animals and, schedules and like all of these things? So like think outside the paid employment box. What sorts of things did you do during that unemployed time that still was professional in nature that you could include on your resume to make that large gap less glaring?
The other thing that I would recommend that people think about in a situation like this, you're in the middle of like a large gap between jobs, is, presumably you have some skills or talent or training for something. We were speaking a little bit earlier in the chat about someone who was interested in IT, probably in project management, doing some stuff with agile as an example. Like that's your background. Maybe you have some certificates in training on agile and project management. Maybe you have years of experience working in those roles. Okay. But the point is you understand project management, you understand agile. Now let's pretend you're between jobs. Okay. You're trying to find a job in project management and agile. But in the meantime, you don't need anyone's permission to use your own skills. So you could write a report on agile. You could publish articles on agile and project management. You could join a group or some kind of community online where they talk about project management or they talk about agile, and you can participate. You can do like at more than just writing articles about it. You could do some kind of thing. Like for example, if you're in the construction business, and you're between jobs, you could write about construction, but then you could also build something, take pictures of it, show it off.
You have a drone where you could
Yeah,
fly and
exactly.
take aerial video.
Yeah,
Yep.
you could do something where you use your skills.
Yep.
So if someone asks you, what have you been doing in this work gap? Have you just been sitting on your butt doing nothing? which is basically what they're wondering. The answer is no. Okay, now we've covered the training thing. I've taken training, blah blah blah. But in addition, I've also been active in my profession. So in construction, I've done these things. I've been to the industry trade shows. I publish articles on it. I've gone to events where they show off new construction techniques and all this kind of stuff. You don't need anyone's permission to apply your own skills. So whatever your skills are, do something constructive with them so people can see, oh yeah, you're a leader in that area. Not only do you talk about it, you can demonstrate it. And then it's pretty simple to explain what you've done in a work app. It'll be seen a lot less like a liability, that, you're just doing nothing. You've been out of it for a while.
Yep.
That's another option too.
Yep. And LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to post articles for free that then get blasted to everyone on LinkedIn if you use certain tags, and it gets sent to people who are interested in similar topics. So that's a really easy, quick way to really showcase that you are a thought leader in a specific area or industry. So LinkedIn is an easy way to do that because it's basically like a blog that you get free access to readers through.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great tool. And Exile's Son says, what is the best steps for re-entering the workforce after being terminated or discharged? Performance only, no ethics or policy violations, say with 6-month gap of unemployment since termination. I wouldn't draw attention to, if you were fired with cause for performance issues, I would take the approach that you don't want to get into it with people. Because I think once you start talking about that, it's like you just go down this abyss of, you appear as like, oh, we don't want to hire you. You're the type of person that has clear performance issues. They're going to paint you with that brush. So I would take the approach where you're not going to get into it with them.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to elaborate on that further, Abby.
Not much. I mean, that's what I was going to say as well, is it raises some alarm bells if you were to point it out. You don't necessarily want to, like we've mentioned before, you're not going to lie about it if it comes up, but you want to focus more on the positive and how you've grown and developed and prepared for this new role that you're interviewing for, or the job search that you're beginning. You've had a 6-month gap of unemployment. What have you done during those 6 months to prepare you for these next steps? If you were fired with cause for performance issues, you likely got some good feedback about what that was, what was lacking, what needed to be improved. And so you can really focus on those as your, things that you've worked on and that you're wanting to put into practice with this new role. You're not mentioning that you were fired for performance issues for those reasons, but just in your mind, those are things that you can highlight as these are the things I've worked on in the last, in my time of unemployment, or these are the things that I've done to hone my skills or increase my training or, whatever. But keep it positive. You don't need to bring it up.
I want to say that I agree with Abby on this, and that is the best sort of way to look at it. However, I want to offer an alternative sort of take on this, and that is that almost like a sort of underdog kind of attitude here. If you're fired for performance issues at the end of the day are still a matter of opinion. Like if you have a boss that's just out to lunch, they don't know what the hell they're doing, and they got some pretty damn strange ideas of how jobs should be performed. And then
or very unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. In their opinion, you have performance issues, simply because you didn't do it exactly the same way that they dictated when they dictated to you that you should do it in a way that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like you get all kinds of stuff going on out there. So listen, it's quite plausible that you might have found yourself in that situation. And the problem is that if you are in a situation like this, where you have to apply for a job and, you can expect them to say, well, why did you leave your last job? Right. It's a question that's probably going to come up. The problem is officially Your reason for termination was performance issues. You don't want to admit that, because then that sort of gives everyone the impression that, you're a bad employee, when that could be completely untrue. So in that case, okay, now I'm not advocating that people lie about stuff, but here's possibly a way you could phrase it that might work for you. Is you could say, look, when I was originally hired, okay, it was for a specific role, and the way it was communicated to me that, it was for this role, this is what my duties would be, this is how it would work. But over time, it became apparent that my duties changed from that original agreement, and my job morphed into something completely different that did not speak to my talents or my interest. And for that reason, it did not work out, and I'm ready to do more. And that's how I would phrase it.
Yep.
Now, is that a lie? I would say under the circumstances, I would be okay with saying that. It is quite a stretch, but given some of the nature of this, if you've been branded incorrectly as to having performance issues, I don't personally, for myself, I don't think it's unethical to spin it in that way under the circumstances.
I agree. And again, what we've mentioned before in this stream is that you are marketing yourself, you're selling yourself. So you've really got to put yourself in this light and this perspective that shows that you're the best fit for a position. And if we dwell on the fact that we were terminated with cause for performance problems, that's going to raise some concerns with the person who's doing the hiring process. It doesn't mean that they're not going to consider you anymore. It just means they're probably going to take a closer look at you than they would otherwise. Now, I would recommend a similar type of response to what Bill just said. It could also be something like, why did you leave your last job? It just wasn't a good fit anymore. Like that right there.
Yeah.
It's not a good fit. My performance wasn't measuring up to what they were expecting me. Maybe there were some other things going on. Maybe I didn't have a great relationship with my supervisor or my colleagues or coworkers. Maybe I just didn't like the work. Just saying that it just wasn't a good fit anymore. And I recognize that. And I'm glad to be moving on to this new experience. It can still acknowledge the situation without being too honest about what actually went down.
Yeah. And just remember, the deeper you get into explaining what happened, the worse it gets for you. The best thing would be to like what Abby just said, it's not a good fit. Oh, how delightfully vague. Like that's actually good, because the more detailed you get in your answer, the more you get into, well, this didn't work out and that didn't work out. And I didn't get along with this person. I didn't get along with that person. The deeper you go, the worse it is for yourself. So the best thing is to just not get into it at all. Just say, this is what happened.
Skim over it.
Story. Yeah, there we go. Next question. Where did we leave off here? Ivan says, greetings. I'm interested in finding a job in the USA from Europe for an electronics engineer position. What is the best way to find jobs other than job postings, since I don't know anyone in the USA?
Rewind 20 minutes when we talked about networking in this exact stream. You want to identify organizations that have the types of jobs that you would want to work in, and then find people who work in those organizations who are either doing that same work or adjacent to that work in some way, shape, or form, and connect with them somehow. LinkedIn is the easiest way to do that. Let's just say I want to work for a specific company. I go onto their LinkedIn profile. I look at people who are in similar types of jobs that I would want to do. I start connecting with them. I do informational interviews with them, and eventually might get my foot in the door to apply for a job that's not necessarily widely broadcasted on the internet for everyone that way. Or maybe they put my name in for an internal recruitment or something like that. But it's networking.
Yeah. I don't want to talk down to anybody here. And this might seem self-evident, but it's amazing how many people don't realize this. You have the right to talk to anyone you want. We're talking Europe, we're talking United States, where Abby is, we're talking Canada, where I am. These are all free countries or collections of free countries. We have the right to talk to whomever we want. Now, in return, they have the right to not respond to us, right? But you'd be amazed how many people don't realize this, especially young people.
Mhm.
Who has the power to hire you? Is it at people at your level, or is it people above you? It's usually people above you. And the more above you they are, the more power they have to hire you. You talk to executives at companies like larger than, like, say, $5 million annual revenue, they can hire you on the spot, okay, if they like you. And that does happen a lot. They're always looking out for people that are hardworking, that have the right attitude, that they're very enthusiastic, you know. So, so first of all, if you're looking for a job and you're trying to do it through networking, talking to people that are at your level, although that might be kind of comfortable and familiar to you, um, they usually don't have the power to help you, really.
Mhm.
You know, if you talk to people that are above you, they have the power to actually hire you, to employ you as a contract employee, or, they can do all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So,
They
so
have to be a decision maker.
yeah, so two things. You have, first of all, you have the right to talk to anyone. A lot of people do not exercise that. They prefer not to even try. Okay.
Mhm.
Then you also have at your means, at your disposal, tools like Google Maps and LinkedIn. Okay. And what these do is that if you arrive in a city where you know nobody and you're unemployed and you need to find a job, and you're a professional of some kind, you can work like at a higher level job, um, you have the means to discover around you all the entities that could potentially hire someone with your skills. Okay. That's what Google Maps excels at. You can look at a map of where you are, and then you can do a search for like different types of business and see them all pop up on the map all around you. And you can mouse over each of these little dots, and you can see, here's their website, here's their phone number, here's their email address, here's their name, right? Then you've got LinkedIn. Okay, now if you know the name of a company that turns out they're right next door to you and they hire people with your skills, you can enter that name into LinkedIn. You can do a search in your hometown for the name of that company or the name of that organization. And then you can see inside of it to all the individuals. Oh, here's the CEO, here's the head of operations, here's the head of department of where I would be working if I was working for them. I'm an engineer. This is the head of the engineering department. And then they report to the chief operations officer. Here they all are. Here's all the people. Like there's their names. Here's their resume, their profile, so you can see like what their background is. And here's exactly how I send them a message directly, right? So we've got these tools at our disposal, right? It's a question of now learning how to use them, putting all this together and saying, okay, I've arrived here. I know nobody. I'm going to look at what's around me. I'm going to reach out to not just those organizations, but various people within each of those organizations. And I'm going to communicate various things. One thing is the simplest possible thing you can do is to say, hello, I'm here. I solved this problem. And if ever you're looking for someone who can solve that problem for you, let me know, because I'd love to work for your company.
Mhm.
Like just that alone, most people will not be hiring for someone like you right at this moment. Most people, but some people will be, just coincidentally right now. If you sent out that message and it lands right in their lap, they were looking to hire someone with your skills right now anyway. So you just landed right in their lap. Now, who are they going to interview first? Like a faceless stack of resumes for people that, presumably need money, and that's the only reason that they've contacted them, or someone who reached out specifically to them when that wasn't part of the procedure that actually goes around some of the standard hiring process, right? And a lot of people will appreciate that thing that you've done because it shows initiative. And how many people did this? If 1,000 people applied for a posted job, do you think 1,000 people contacted this person with a similar message? No,
Yeah.
it would be like one, possibly two. So they've already got a sample of how professional you are, how much you care about this job, or you care about working for them because you've gone to this effort when you didn't need to. They've got a sample of your communication skills. They've got a sample of how persuasive you are. And if you said something in your note that made them feel good, like saying, I know your company does great work. I would love to work for you if every work, some of the subtle compliment, they go, oh, that's nice. We're starting out on the right foot, right? So already they've got a good feeling about you. Okay. So these are some of the things that you can do when you're in a new place. You don't know anyone. You don't have any kind of existing network, but you're creating that network by reaching out to people. Okay. If you want to go deeper, if you're watching this on my channel, in the description box under this live stream, I've got a link to a video I did called How Successful People Get Jobs. And like I show you, it's like a video of my desktop as I go through all this, so you can see what that might look like if you want to check that out. This is what I would recommend. And the great thing is you don't have to talk to another living person on the phone or face to face unless they invite you down for some kind of meeting. So I'd start with that. Okay, I did it again. Now we've racked up a whole bunch of comments here.
We had Trey, who was asking that follow-up question, and Alberto's question was about working with the headhunter, and they've been, let go since they started working with this headhunter. So do they bring it up? So how would you frame the situation to the interviewer? Well, in best case scenario, you don't. If it does come up and they've asked you directly, have you been let go or what happened, then you give them the information that they need to know and you can kind of move on from there. So, if this person is let go, maybe the organization was restructured and they just recognized that there were some positions that were no longer necessary for efficiency purposes, or, they downsized the team and their position just happened to be one of 15 that was let go, and then move on.
Absolutely. We're running short on time, I think. Let's see if we can just try and get through some of these things. So Ashboro, is that what I'm hearing? Ashboro? Boro, according to the phonetic there. Just call me Gwen. Okay, we'll do that. Shalini, if I'm saying that right. I have been jobless for the past 16 months, and despite having all the qualities and skills, plus keeping myself upskilled, I'm not able to get a job. Why? Because only reference matters. Shalini, it sounds like you are highly capable, highly talented, highly employable person. The problem is that getting a job is not the same thing as being qualified for a job. Just because you're qualified, which it sounds like you are, if you don't know how to go about getting a job, that's a whole different set of skills, unfortunately, as I'm sure you're finding out. Okay.
Yes. And Shalini has some extra kind of comments that came through after this. So
okay.
They're wondering if this is a global problem, which I would say it is. I would say probably 16 months is on the long end. I wouldn't say that the average is that. And then she says that they've interviewed at many big organizations, but they just ghost you after wasting your precious time for months. At times, they just got lame reasons for not getting hired, ageism, overqualifications. She has 16 plus years of experience, etc. And that their details didn't qualify their score. In my line of work, many are going jobless or are jobless. The reason is AI. I'm from media and communications background. So I think, you've tried every possible way. Nothing is working out. Lots of comments coming through. I've seen companies are hiring those folks in corporate communications who are not even from that background just because of strong references, thus making it more difficult for people like me. I did try networking. Nothing worked. I firmly believe that one can help you only if they want to. You really can't be pushy.
Okay, so for a start, the networking thing, a lot of people think that networking is like, just knowing a bunch of people and then asking for favors. Okay, it can be, but that's like 1% of what it usually is. Usually it doesn't work like that. It's you basically reaching out to people directly in the vast majority of situations, at least unless you have like a massive network of people that you're very close to, like you're some raging extrovert and social butterfly that has built that up over years. And, like that's one thing. But for most of us, and especially introverts, you won't have that. It's about direct outreach. So it's about, as far as I'm concerned, I kind of already sort of went into a lot of that. It's basically that. It's about you reaching out. And it's not about going through official channels. It's not about somebody saying, here is the process, now stand in line and then follow the process. It's about you going around these things. Okay. It sounds like you've played the game of following their official procedure for getting hired. You're trying to play by their rules by applying for jobs and doing everything that you supposedly need to do, but it's not working out for you. You need to go around that. And, I mean, I hate to say it because it sounds like you've been really out in the wilderness trying to do this for a while, but just learn about the nature of how you actually do this. It's not about asking people to recommend you. It's not about asking for them to do a favor for you. It's about taking advantage of essentially serendipity. Out there, there are people who are looking for qualified people that can do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking for? You have a background in, is it corporate communications? Now corporate communications, you could work directly in corporate communications, or you could do a number of ancillary things that require the same skills as corporate communications, but you're not directly working in corporate communications. You know what I mean? Today, communication is still like the number one thing that people do. Why do people not work out in jobs? Usually it's because of the communication. It's about relationships that have broken down. Why do they break down? Because of communication. You know what I mean?
And one of the things that she said in one of her earlier comments was that many are going jobless because of AI. Well, AI can do a lot of great things, but it doesn't have the human element. So if AI is one of the things you're noticing is starting to take over some of these roles and tasks and responsibilities from these types of jobs, you've got to learn how to use the skill of AI to really set you apart from the other people who are also looking for these jobs. So AI might have taken some of your skills and responsibilities off the table because it can now do it. But how can you use this new technology and these platforms and these tools to be even more effective and set yourself apart and unique compared to the other people who are applying to the jobs that you're wanting?
Like, okay, let's do a thought experiment here. Okay, let's just look at the posted job market for a second. Look at some of the jobs. These are vacancies. These are needs that organizations have. Okay. Now, forget about what they say are the official requirements. Okay. They'll probably say you need a degree in this, you need a qualification in that, you need 10 years experience in this. Let's forget about that for a second. What are the roles? What are they looking for people? Okay. Now, let's say, hypothetically, okay, that the requirements that they've listed are crap. You don't, in fact, need those things to be able to do that role. If you have a talent for it, if you understand what that role is really all about, and you understand the results that need to happen, and you know how to get those results, let's pretend that's you. And I'm sure that would certainly apply to you, Shalini, in some role. Okay. You know how to get things done, right? And it's something relevant that hasn't been replaced by AI. Okay. You can go and get that job by going around the official procedure and go through networking, okay, employing similar things that we talked about earlier in this live stream, okay? A lot of times the official requirements are arbitrary, not all the time, but for a lot of stuff we see, especially if it's not in like a regulated profession, a lot of the requirements are just, they're based on how many applicants they get. They have stricter requirements because they're getting so many applicants. They can afford to do it. You know what I mean? It might not be based in reality. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And the great thing about networking is that there's no rules for this stuff. If you can present yourself in a way where people like interacting with you, and you can paint them a picture of what you can do for them that aligns with what they're wanting someone to do for them, then there's a lot of potential there. So if your industry has been disrupted by AI and it's changed the traditional jobs that are there, you might have to reframe what you have And you can do that if you're going sort of around all the rules. That's why I'd recommend networking for this type of thing, as opposed to more of just applying for posted jobs and trying to conform to their little requirements or wants, wills, and needs that they don't seem to be valuing what you have.
Yeah. And I just put in the chat a book recommendation. I've recommended it before many times. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. As I'm like reading through your comments, Shalini, I am feeling that it's like very reactive. You know, you get a rejection and you're upset and it feels like things are out of your control and that things are happening to you. And, you know, all of those things are more of a reactive mindset.
And I just want to say that we understand completely. That's
Yes.
you're a human being, and that's a natural response.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's blaming you for that. That's how anyone would take it, especially
Absolutely.
after 16 months, whatever it's been.
Yes. And it's so frustrating. And when it feels like you've tried everything and you've done every possible thing, but nothing is working out, then like it's very easy to get into this mindset, but it becomes this trap. And I think 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the very first habit is talking about being proactive and reframing the things that are happening around you in ways that give you a little bit more control. So, what can you do? What do you choose to do? And some of those like paradigms and mindset shifts might really help you in this type of situation where you feel like just nothing is working out. The world is against you. Nobody wants you, because that's not it at all. Something is going on, and we've got to diagnose what that is. And it could be your resume. It could be the job search process itself. It could be the way you're finding jobs. Maybe you need to rely more on networking and do it in a different way than what you have in the past. Maybe it's the way you're showing up during interviews. But there are all things in each of those different items that are things that are within your control to change or influence. And so it's identifying what some of those are to try something new, to see what sorts of results you can get next.
Here's something that's just a little random that maybe it might be helpful for you. Listen, what I said earlier at the beginning of the stream somewhere, I was talking about how important it is to be likable, okay, on like a personal basis. If you can meet someone and you're likable, people instantly like you, not because of any natural ability, but because of something that you learn. You learn to smile. You learn to ask them something about them rather than telling them about you. Like these little rules, right? Um, if you were to get in front of someone that owned a company or someone that ran a division or someone who ran a department of a company, and you said, like, listen, I think what you guys are doing here is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate this, the way everyone here seems to be so happy and everything seems to be so organized, whatever, it's like, I would love to work for a company like this, just that alone, you have the right attitude, you're very complimentary and they like you before you even talk about skills or what specifically you can do. They want to hire you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can, they will. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about skills, it's not about all these technicalities. It starts with this very high level stuff, this like new age level 9 kind of stuff. That's how it might appear.
Yeah.
But that stuff really is super important. So if you've been trying a lot of stuff and it hasn't been going anywhere, I mean, I don't know what your situation is, but it's conceivable to me that maybe if there is a problem, it might lie with that stuff. You know what I mean? So if you could like do 2 things, you could work on that. Okay, let's pretend that was the problem. You work on that. And then also you come up with a new technique where you get in front of people. Okay. Now, I already talked about a bunch of stuff, but something I haven't mentioned is if you really want to kick it up a notch and you're applying for a posted job, okay, let's pretend it's at a place like the employer is physically near you. Geographically, they're in close proximity to where you live. Okay. You could apply in person instead of just submitting your application online. Walk through the front doors of that organization, go talk to the reception desk or whatever, and try and apply in person. And hear me out. This is probably how it'll go. Okay. If you walk in there with, say, a resume on paper resume in an envelope or something, okay, and you walk in, you say, okay, well, I'd like to, I'd very much like to speak with this manager. the head of the whatever engineering department, head of the communications department, right? Director of communications. Could I please speak to that person? Are they available? 95% chance they're going to say no, they're not available right now. You say, okay, not a problem. Listen, if I leave this here, can you make sure that that person gets it? Is that okay? Now, 95% chance they'll say, sure, yeah, I can make sure they get it. And you could also ask, like, I'm sorry, what was the person's name? Can I ask? 90% of the time they'll tell you. Okay, that's no issue. Okay, so you say, okay, no problem. If I leave this here, if you make sure they get that, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have yourself a great day, right? Then you go away. Then you follow up with a phone call. Now that you know the name of the person that's the director of communication, leave a voicemail for them in the evening or something. They're probably not going to pick up. That's fine. Leave a voicemail. Say, hello, my name is Shalini. I'm just following up. I had left an envelope for you at the front desk. I'm just following up to see if you received that. That's all. Thank you and have a great day. And maybe you get a call back, maybe you don't. Follow up again, say, yes, I understand that, you have a vacancy for this position. I'd very much like to apply for it. And I would just wondering maybe if it would make sense for me to pursue this, something like that. And then you start to try and get a dialogue together. And what they're probably going to do is they're probably going to go talk to the receptionist and say, did you meet this person? What were they like? And they'll say, oh, they were great, and this kind of thing. You can also try that and then go apply online. Okay. Right. You know what I mean? Like some combination of this is the stuff that can get you noticed because not everybody's doing this. You're elevating yourself above the 800 people who applied for the job by doing this. Right. And, so that's another possibility. There's all kinds of things you can do. It's about thinking of some of this stuff, if that helps.
Yep, exactly.
Anyway.
Take that proactive response. Take a pause when something is happening. Acknowledge it, and then make a choice about what you can do in the situation that is within your control.
Yes, we are going to wind this down, I think, because I think you probably have to take off. Now, is there anything that we missed here? Because we were jumping around quite a bit and answering some of these questions.
Yeah, there's a couple good questions coming through that I think we can answer quickly. So Aldo put in the chat right below Shalini's questions. Is it okay to manage a hiring process like a sale and ask the interviewer what they're looking for so you can quickly follow up to what's of most interest instead of them managing the conversation? Or is it best to listen actively and then answer with given detail? I think it depends. I think in most cases, the hiring manager or the interviewer is expecting it to be driven by them. However, that doesn't mean that the interview can't be conversational. So you could, let's say they start off the interview by saying, tell me a little bit about yourself. You give them your prepared answer, and then you say, what sorts of qualities and characteristics are you looking for from someone who would come in this job? You can kind of then start to drive the conversation and make it feel more conversational, which is ultimately more enjoyable for the interviewer as well than answering their question, ending, and waiting for them to answer the next question. So you can manage it like a sale. You don't necessarily want to be too direct about it. Like, hey, let's cut to the chase. What are you looking for? They might appreciate that, but I wouldn't recommend doing that with every interview. But you can make the interview more conversational and you start to lead it, which is also a good representation of your skills for the role that you're likely applying to.
Absolutely. Entrepreneurial is W9, we reporters. Okay. Mm-hmm. Could you give some example? Passion projects, finance, it could be. No, not immediately off the top of my head. Sorry, amazed.
Some of the things that come to mind for me is like helping people budget, or if you are into investing and you have a certain portfolio that you're, the person that you're interviewing with might find interesting. Their finances are related to everything. So, maybe you developed a budget for Christmas. How did you develop that budget? How much money were you going to spend per person in your family? And, so there's things that you could find that are relevant to the role that you're applying to that could be a passion project.
Something that's interesting to me, I don't know if this is relevant to what you were wondering about at all, but is capital structure of organizations. What's the optimal amount of debt that, gives you flexibility, but also leverages you to where you want to be and all this kind of stuff. because it's a trade-off, right? More debt means that you get better financial performance, but more debt means more risk of bankruptcy if you have volatility in your revenue. So, I mean, like that would be something I'm personally interested in. What would be the optimal capital structure in a variety of situations and with different sort of risk tolerances and all this kind of stuff. That would be interesting to me personally. I don't know if that's either here nor there,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. I overthink a lot when it comes to preparing interviews. What should I do? It's simply a matter of preparation.
Mhm.
Practice
Take
by
a deep breath.
practice by yourself. Sorry, go ahead, Abby.
Well, I was just going to say, take a deep breath. When we overthink it, then we start to spiral, and you don't want to spiral. So when you find yourself spiraling, take a pause, take that deep breath, step away from the preparation process, and then come back to it with hopefully more of a clear mind. And the best thing that I found that will really help people focus during an interview is remembering that it's up to them to answer questions in a way that's relevant to the listener. So it's about what the other person, the interviewer, wants to hear, not what you want to say. So that's
Yeah.
a great way to kind of refocus yourself on what you're sharing, how you're preparing, what you're doing, to be more focused on the other person than on you.
It's a skill like any other. Practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If you find you're a little burnt out or overwhelmed about it, in my opinion, the best sort of way to do it is after you've figured out basic answers to the questions and stuff, and you have an idea of what you're going to say. Then simply do practice interviews, mock interviews, just with a friend or family member or a career coach, anyone else. Do as much of those as you possibly can. I would recommend something like for 2 weeks, do like 3 or 4 of those a day. If you can grab like a family member or a friend or someone, uh, and then at the end of 2 weeks, after you've done like 4 times 10, that's 40 mock interviews, you'll know those questions backwards, forwards. It doesn't matter how nervous you might be, you'll still be able to remember the answer because you've said it 40 times. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of rehearsal, right? And the other thing is, you can't control what interviewers say to you. Most interviews, like, I don't know, 80 to 90% of what they ask you've heard before. There's always going to be an element of uncertainty. They might ask you something you've never even considered, or they might just have weird ideas about how to assess somebody. You can't control any of that. Just take it all in your stride. Some things will go surprisingly well, and occasionally something will go amiss, but you can't control that. And the confidence will come after you've done quite a few interviews, mock interviews or real interviews. The confidence will come. So don't sweat it. Just do the best you can and just recognize that that's the process.
Now, we did have some more questions come through, but what I'm going to ask people to do is, instead of keeping them in the chat, put them in the comments of this live stream, and Bill and I will come back and we'll answer your questions directly once we have some more time to be able to focus on those questions, just because we are getting to the end of our time together, or save them and bring them to our next live stream, which is scheduled for April, go to my calendar, 14th, I believe.
Yeah. Did we schedule those? I haven't checked my calendar for in 2 weeks, but that would be when they would occur. Yes.
If we've got one scheduled, that's when it will be up.
Let's just say that's when it's going to take place. So there you go. It's also very gratifying that people have so many questions. Thank you for participating in this. You're really giving us a run for our money. You're asking more questions than at a rate greater than I think we can comfortably answer them. So
yes,
I'm trying to include everyone. I don't want to skip any if I can possibly help it for me, but that's great. So yes, we will be back in a couple of weeks. Thank you for the participation. You guys are awesome. You are all highly employable. It's just a matter of connecting with the employer who's looking for someone with your talents right now. That's always the catch with this stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's luck, really, is what it comes down to. Finding the right job at the right organization with the right hiring manager for your skills and your personality. It's a key that has to fit into a specific lock, and You just need to find that luck.
I need to adopt that term, luck. I've been calling it random chance, statistical probability. People don't really latch on to that term, but I like your way of phrasing it better. It is total luck. Okay, thanks everyone. You guys are awesome. We will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care of yourselves.
Bye, everyone.